Hey everybody. It's pretty early morning. Um, right now I just woke up a little while ago. I'm still like in the waking up phase, and I decided to look online and see what if there's any, new news out there. And I saw a lawsuit that's been filed by Nintendo against the Yuzu emulator. It looks like it was filed in I think the Rhode Island court system on February 26th. Yeah, it even says on this article here it was filed on February 26th in the United States District Court of Rhode Island and alleges that Tropic Haze, which I believe is the company behind Yuzu or the organization that makes Yuzu, should I don't know if I should call it a company, but the group or organization. Um, and they're alleging that they are liable for unlawful distribution of pirated copies of. I've seen it pirated copies of games, but they are uh, especially like calling out Tears of the Kingdom here in this article. Um, this is something that worries me a little bit, and that is because right now the court system in the U.S., if you look especially at the Supreme Court, they're not averse to reversing decades old decisions. And the legal status of emulators has been built for decades on that case that I believe was Sony versus Bleem or something like that. But even back then, Bleem lost the initial case. A court ruled against them. They only won in an appeals court. And that's what basically set the precedent that we have today that, reverse engineering a games console for the purpose of producing an emulator is perfectly legal. Assuming that number one, you don't have any prior knowledge of the game console, meaning you don't have any information or insider info like a technical manual used by the engineers who designed it. If you have that and you reverse engineer it, then that's not above board. That is breaking the law. But if you go into it with really no knowledge of it and manage to figure out how it works all on your own and write an emulator, that for a long time now has been perfectly legal to do. The only thing that has been illegal is playing ROMs on it. But the emulator itself uh, has been legal. Nintendo on their own website, I don't have that pulled up right now, but on their own website, they actually have a sort of a frequently asked questions, and they talk about emulators, and they say they're not legal, and that's not, at least within the United States, that's not legally true. But of course, it's going to be in their best interest to try and minimize piracy as much as possible. So yeah, games companies are going to say, "Oh, everything you can possibly do related to emulation is illegal. We can't have that." But the problem is, like I said, the emulators themselves are legal. Playing ROMs on them isn't necessarily, and you will see other articles and stuff on the internet, and you will see YouTube videos. I've seen videos where people say, "Here's how you dump your games and play on emulators," and it's 100% legal. And I don't think any lawyer in the U.S. would. I think they all cringe anytime someone says this is 100% legal, um, because it's not that cut and dry. The U.S. Copyright Act actually, you know what? Let's pull that up here. Okay, I found what I was looking for, and that is this frequently asked questions on uh, copyright.gov website. And here's where it gets interesting, because they have a question of, can I back up my computer software? And the answer is yes, under certain conditions as provided by Section 117 of the Copyright Act. Although the precise term used under Section 117 is archival copy, not backup copy. These terms today are used interchangeably. This privilege extends only to computer programs and not to other types of works. Under Section 117, you or someone you authorize may make a copy of an original computer program if the new copy is being made for archival or backup purposes, and backup purposes only. You are the legal owner of the copy, and any copy made for archival purposes is either destroyed or transferred with the original copy. Once the original copy is sold, given away, or otherwise transferred. So this is saying for computer software, you are allowed to make backups, but you need to make the backup yourself. And if you so you have to have the original in order to make the backup. And if you give away or sell or otherwise change ownership of the original, you have to give away the backup. You can't sell the original and keep the backup. They have to go together. And the inverse is true. If you give someone the backup, you've got to give them the original as well, and you completely lose ownership there. It says you are not permitted under Section 117 to make a backup copy of other material on a computer's hard drive, such as other copyrighted works that have been downloaded, e.g., music, films. This is the crux of the issue here, and this is why I'm really not excited to see any big court cases over emulation and ROMs because of this. This is worded in such a way that I feel you could make an argument either way as to how this would affect video games. One way being that the game itself is a piece of computer software, so yes, shouldn't I be allowed to back it up? That's what it says up here. But when you look at the type of work and the industries involved, I don't think it would be hard to argue that other copyrighted works that have been downloaded, when you have music and films as an example, a logical addition to that would be video games. And video games may contain things like music and films within them. So, yeah, it would be easy to argue that it goes here, in which case that would definitely, at least based on the U.S. Copyright Act, and I'm not going into any details of things like the DMCA or other documents, legal documents, which may or may not supersede this. But just looking at the copyright law right here, if this included video games, then it would be telling us that we cannot make backup copies, which would mean that there is no legal way to obtain a ROM of your favorite games. It goes on to say it is also important to check the terms of sale or license agreement of the original copy of software in case any special conditions have been put in place by the copyright owner that might affect your ability or right under Section 117 to make a backup copy. There is no other provision in the Copyright Act that specifically authorizes the making of backup copies of works other than computer programs, even if those works are distributed as digital copies. One of the arguments that I've seen in articles talking about this is that Nintendo plans to argue that Yuzu is illegal because it circumvents the encryption that they have in place. And I've seen people argue that or at least make the claims that Yuzu doesn't actually provide you with the prod.keys file. And that is true. They don't. You have to supply that yourself. So it would come down to, is making a tool capable of doing potentially illegal decryption illegal in itself? Which I hope not, because I don't think that knowledge of anything, an ability to create anything, should ever really be illegal. Um, it's all about the intent and the usage of it once it's created. Um, well, I say anything, but there are probably, yeah, yeah. When it comes to this, that's definitely how I feel. And it's good that they don't supply the product keys. Um, but the thing that's on their website that is maybe not great is their quick start guide. It tells you how to download and install Yuzu, hardware requirements, a guide, introduction, prereqs, booting into RCM, preparing a micro SD card, booting Hecate from RCM. Some of these things might seem a little iffy, but in a world, let's say we're in a world where dumping your own games is perfectly legal, and these are all a means to an end to do that. All these steps, then yeah, I think this is probably fine. This isn't really a big issue, but that is also, arguing that we're in a world where dumping your own ROMs is perfectly 100% legal. And as I mentioned before, I do not believe that we currently are in that world. We're in a world where a court has not decided that, and there are decent arguments to be made either way. But then we get down here to dumping decryption keys. This this is something I wish wasn't on their website. This is not great. Uh, it might also fall under the category of, is having the knowledge of how to do something illegal in and of itself. But yeah, I think it would be better if their website did not have these instructions on it, because this right here, you're gonna, when this court case starts, you're gonna see this. You are gonna absolutely see this come up. This is going to be a part of it. This section of their website. Honestly, in my personal opinion, I think it's okay that they made a tool that is capable of performing illegal decryption, but I think it's probably not a good look that they're explaining to people on their site exactly what to do this. Um, at least I don't think it'll be a good look in the eyes of a court and a jury. Assuming, every article I've looked at says, Nintendo wants, them to stand trial before a jury, and but if you look at most cases with big companies like this, like Nintendo, uh, I feel like 9 times out of 10, and it's the reason we haven't had a big emulation court case in a while, is uh, these large companies like Nintendo can be very intimidating. They have a lot of money behind them, usually more than the groups developing these emulators. Uh, they can, last for a very long, drawn out trial, expensive trial. So what usually ends up happening is the defendants usually end up settling outside of court with the company like Nintendo. Um, but I also, it's one of those situations in which settling might be the best thing for the individuals involved. It might be their cheapest and safest way out of this. But I am also concerned whenever that happens, because it's what's going to change because you settled. What are you admitting to, and what rights and or precedents are going to be set because you settled? And that's also something to always be concerned about. But yeah, I'm a big fan of emulation. Uh, when it comes to Switch emulation, I would say just about every game I've ever played on an emulator like Yuzu, I actually own a copy of on my physical Switch. And if Nintendo and other companies offered ways for me to buy digital versions that I could play on my PC, um, I would just buy them there and not on the console. I would still, I'm still willing to pay for them. I just prefer playing games on my gaming PC rather than a console. So yeah, I'm a big fan of emulation. So I really hope this goes Yuzu's way. I kind of hope Nintendo loses this. Um, but I just find it really interesting and just wanted to kind of bring it to everybody's attention if it's not already on your radar that this is something that's happening. Um, Also, no matter how it goes, it's funny that this comes at sort of the last stages of the Nintendo Switch's lifespan. I mean, we're all fully expecting, a new console from Nintendo within like the next year. So it seems like this move by Nintendo may be too little too late as far as it pertains to the Switch, because, I feel like most of the great games that are going to be on the Switch are already out, and most of them already work pretty well with emulators. So I don't know exactly what they're protecting with this current generation, unless this is just a move to try and get law established to help them uh, prevent this sort of thing in future iterations of consoles that they make. Or if it's just a move to, in general, get the laws changed around emulation, or at least in some cases changed and in some cases established. Because again, there's the only thing that I'm aware of that's really truly established in a court of law in the United States is that reverse engineering a console in order to produce an emulator is based on the laws on the books legal. However, like I said, playing ROMs uh, playing ROMs on those emulators is very questionable as far as its legality. Uh, Despite what you may have heard from like your favorite YouTubers or read on the internet, it's can't be said right now that there's a 100% legal way to play a ROM. And the other thing I'll add is, and I'm talking about dumping ROMs from games you own. Any argument for any level of legality for playing ROMs on emulators involves dumping it from a copy you own. Downloading a ROM file is never in U.S. law. It's always has been, probably always will be illegal. Just downloading a ROM from the internet, 100% illegal in the U.S. Like no doubt, no question. But yeah, so like I said, I just found this interesting. So that's all I've got for now. So I will see you on the next one.